This is our 1970 Volkswagen Westfalia, a vintage camper van that we got for an insane deal and are rebuilding from the ground up. First, completely gutting it to make sure there was no rust, then rebuilding the interior, kitchen, and living quarters, then moving on to an insane engine swap. We stuffed a 2.7 liter Toyota Tacoma 3RZ-FE 4-cylinder in the back of this thing, made it to the stock transaxle. And this week, we're gonna get this thing ready to actually run and drive, which means we need brakes, we need a cooling system, we need some wiring sorted, and so much more. So we're gonna get this thing back into the garage and get straight to work. Now that we've got this thing in the garage, we have an absolute ton of parts to start getting this thing back on the road. We've got a cooling system to tackle, we've got a charging system to tackle. This thing has no brakes. And we've got to get an exhaust on this thing. I absolutely hate loud cars. This thing is obnoxiously loud, and it's a camper van. You don't want your camper van to be obnoxiously loud. I'm okay with a little bit of noise, just not a ton. So let's get to work and start figuring out the most important things. And to me, most important is going to be getting exhaust on here and then getting brakes. With this is going to come a ton of small bits. If you've ever done an engine swap or a big project like this, you know it really adds up, takes a ton of time, and that's exactly where we're at in this project. So let's get to work so we can hopefully see this thing on the road for the first time in what I'm pretty sure is 25 years. Now that we've got the engine in here, we need to get it quieted down. Unfortunately, a header dump just isn't for me. I don't really enjoy super loud cars, so we've got this big old muffler under here. We gotta get the muffler in a place that makes sense, and we gotta get it connected to the downpipe that goes the wrong direction. It's pointed forward in the vehicle. Now that the muffler's hanging here, we've gotta get a pretty intricate piece that goes from the muffler inlet, which comes in back here, over and around to the downpipe. It's mainly gonna be difficult because of how close the downpipe and the inlet to the muffler are. The piece I have started for this is actually a normal bend that I took a couple pie cuts out of and bent even further to get a tighter radius, and it gets it really close to going into the downpipe. Then we're just gonna need a couple more small pie cuts and we should be good to go. Hopefully I can start tacking stuff together. After getting it tacked up, we're going to be able to pull it out, and since we're using a factory ECU, we need to put a factory O2 sensor in so the ECU can know what parameters to run with. And with such a small exhaust, before long, we're ready to fire this thing up and see what it sounds like. It's got some runnability issues because the wiring isn't sorted and we have no cooling system, but it sounds so much better than it did before. Although we've got the interior living space pretty well dialed in, we have not quite tackled the driving quarters of this thing. So it's time to dive into this and start getting things sorted. Like I said, most important and number one on our priority list is getting the brakes dialed in. This thing needs to be able to stop before we can drive it. I don't want to even think about taking it down the road unless I can trust that it's going to stop when I hit the brakes. Currently, when you hit the brake pedal, it goes straight to the floor, no resistance. The reservoir does look pretty dry. I don't know exactly what's going on there. This thing's been sitting for about 25 years. I don't know if it's got a leak, if it's got an issue with the brake system, or if the fluid just kind of disappeared. But we're gonna start by putting fluid in it, pumping the brakes up, and seeing if that does anything. And if it does, maybe we can just salvage this brake system, because that would be awesome. The brake reservoir is in the cab, which is absolutely bonkers to me. It looks like this plastic's pretty old, which makes me nervous, but we're gonna start by just adding fluid and seeing what happens. Oh, we got a drip. Let's see. It is so crazy. The master cylinder is actually below the cab. There's this pivot point and lever that's connected directly to the pedal. And there's no power brakes or anything since the engine's in the back. And then that hose right there goes up and is where you fill it in the cab. Oh my goodness. Plug studs. Sometimes I'm like, the Germans had it right. And then I pull out a lug stud. Like, what is this crap? Where does the, what do you put the wheel on? All right. Okay, it broke loose. Now we just need to see if we can get fluid out of here. This is the furthest wheel from the master cylinder, so if we're getting fluid to here, there's a good chance that we can probably get fluid to all the other wheels, but there's only one way to find out. Let's get to bleeding these brakes. It's a pretty boring process, so I will catch you in about 4 brake bleeds and or when something goes wrong. Unbelievably gross color of fluid that came out of the rear of this thing. Okay, kind of gross, but it's all right. Let's see if we can get the front to bleed as well as the back. Where be the bleeder? Where be the bleeder? I can't believe the bleeder's on the bottom. What are the odds that these brake backing plates are upside down and the bleeder is supposed to be on the top? And if that's the case, why is there a bracket holding the line into the top? I have no freaking clue what's happening right now. These brakes are so backwards. The bleeder's on the bottom. Air bubbles go up. How does that work? I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna bleed the brakes anyway. The little bit of research I did and the one person I messaged said that it probably is normal. So I'm gonna bleed the brakes, see if they feel good. And after this, we might actually be able to stop this thing, which would be cool. Then we can move on to more exciting things. You gotta get some boring stuff done before you can get to the exciting things. Unfortunately, it looks like this reservoir has got a dry rock crack going down it and is gonna need replaced. But after bleeding the brakes for forever, there's very little play and the pedal is extremely stiff, and I am so happy about that. Hey, this is an entire quarter panel we just got in for this project. So if you like seeing stuff like this, hit that subscribe button down below. We've got a ton more content coming on it. Let's get back into it because, like I said, we've got a lot of work to do. Now that we got the exhaust on this thing, we've got the brakes bled, it's time to get into some nitty gritties. We're gonna start with wiring. The wiring harness on this thing is pretty rough. I built it a long time ago, I didn't do a great job, and I left a lot of stuff in there that's unnecessary. So we're gonna be pulling this wiring harness out, thinning it down, cleaning it up, reluming it, and just making it look and work better. Also going to be replacing the fuse block that's in here and running wires all the way up to the driver's compartment so we can turn this thing on and off from the driver's seat. Got a little bit of work ahead of us. Wiring is a big, big task. I also don't know for sure if I can pull this wiring harness in the engine bay. So we're about to find out. This is very interesting to have better access from the bottom than the top. That was lame. In order to thin this down, we've got this, a mock-up engine. We're gonna be able to set all of these wires where they would go on an actual engine, not on the engine that's in the engine bay. And that way we can at least get an idea of how we're gonna loom them. We'll give them all a little bit of extra space, so there's some wiggle room, of course, but this should make mocking things up a ton easier and more efficient, and we can turn this into something a little more presentable. Unearthing things I never wanted to see the light of day. Thinning this down, I'm gonna be removing everything that is unnecessary, every single wire that's unnecessary, shortening wires that are too long, and just making it look as good as possible. When I'm done with this, we'll then be able to move on to the cooling system. This is a Volkswagen from an early Volkswagen Scirocco. I believe it's an import-only car in the United States, but when I was looking up radiators for this thing, I just kind of looked up dimensions. This one happened to fit, and the outlets are on the same side, which is gonna make it super easy because the plan for this radiator is actually to stuff it in here sideways next to the engine and hang it up in there. So this is where the radiator is actually going to live. We're gonna put some fans on it. It's got ducting from the stock air-cooled engine that comes in the top side, and I'm hoping this is gonna be enough to get everything settled. We're gonna be putting a massive heat shield in between this and the exhaust. Obviously, I don't wanna just heat soak the radiator. I'm really thinking this is probably going to work. I'm not certain, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I'd like this before I put a massive radiator behind the engine, just to keep things neat and tidy. In order to get it up there, I've got these little brackets I whipped up. They're just some nice 1/8" square stock I cut up to fit up under here on the support for the bed surface. I'm gonna tack these up there and tack the nuts onto it, and it should just be easy enough. Throw the radiator up there, bolt it in place, and be good to go. Then we can start getting some radiator lines run, and this thing might actually be able to like run through a heat cycle soon, which would be insane. Scary. Oh, I hope this works. Hope this radiator is enough. Enough. Enough, enough, enough. Radiator. Now let's see how impossible it is to take off. Turns out I built it a tad too close to the firewall for the fuel tank, and I do not have enough room to get a socket back there to take it off. Oh, yeah, just get the socket stuck, why don't you? Luckily, I've got a fantastic solution. Which worked just enough to give me enough room to sneak a socket up there and be able to remove this radiator, which is huge. Now we gotta get coolant lines on. And that's gonna be difficult. I started by tacking up a pipe across the engine to hopefully help facilitate getting the lower radiator hose closer to the radiator. Now does that make it any easier? I don't know where I would fill it. And after looking at every single radiator hose the local parts store had, I think I figured something out. Currently surrounded by every radiator hose I own and a pressure test kit. It's because I think I have rendition 1 of the cooling system done. I say rendition 1 because I'm not sure that this is going to suffice perfectly for everything we need. I'm hopeful, but we will see. I do have a massive fan coming in for this. I'm going to be shrouding it, making sure it gets as much airflow as possible. And my real big question is this. I actually have a pretty interesting plan for a radiator fill involving the heater core lines, and I'm using the lower radiator hose as the radiator cap. You do need a radiator cap. You need a way to expel extra pressure, have a relief, and also a way to suck in water after it cools off. So that will be here. Hopefully that works out. I don't know for sure. Funny enough, the only leak in the entire system had nothing to do with any of the radiator hoses, but was a gasket on the engine. Got the absolute atrocity of a wiring harness thinned down, and it looks so much better. I am so much happier with this. It's gonna be easier to clean up, and everything is gonna look so much better. I'm excited, so we're gonna throw this thing back on the engine, and we're just about ready to wrap up this wiring harness and make sure this thing still runs and drives and doesn't have any issues. Then we might even be able to start filling this radiator with coolant and seeing if it heat cycles. Great. Two days of wiring later, and we finally have this thing pretty well sorted out. We thinned out all of the harnesses. We've got this thing completely dialed in, and it's wired all the way up to the driver's seat. We're getting ready to test if this alternator is going to charge. That's how dialed in this wiring is. And if the alternator charges, we're gonna wrap everything, clean everything up for the final time, and be just about done with engine wiring. Still have to wire up taillights. That's okay. That's a whole different problem for a whole different day. Having the engine completely dialed in is going to feel so amazing, and I am so excited. So let's fire this thing up and see if it's charging. We're charging! That means we can fill this thing with coolant and see if maybe we might have a cooling system that can keep this engine under wraps. We're getting so close to driving it! Vroom vroom! This is crazy. feels so wrong. Does not feel like I'm ready. 1.5 gallons of water in. Now we start filling through an external fill port. These are the heater core lines. And this is now 100% the highest point in the system. I'm gonna try and bleed the coolant through here. We'll see how it works. Don't judge it till it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, I'll take all the hate you throw. If it works, it works. Why is it dripping from here? Got water at the very top of the radiator. Yeah, it's still slowly bubbling. Now do I start it? Spicy. We can go down to engine coolant temp is at 84. Really? Now you don't want to die? There's a non-zero chance this thing has a blown head gasket. Just to be transparent, there is definitely a non-zero chance this engine has a bad head gasket. It got pretty hot in the Supra, like 240, 250. Pretty spicy for an aluminum head on a cast iron block. So, these bubbles might not just be bubbles, but we're gonna freaking send it anyway. What? It's gonna blow a head gasket? Oh no. Should just do this with like a normal valve, because I feel like this is not just a bad idea, but an absolute pain in the butt. I knew this radiator was gonna suck. It only really sucks if it doesn't work. Yeah, I got a camper van. This is a running Toyota powered Volkswagen Westfalia, and it does things. It goes vroom vroom. Hang on. It does things. It doesn't love life, but we won't tell people about that. And this thing runs. It's about ready to take it for a first test drive. Now, I'm not gonna go far. I'm not gonna go for a major test drive. We're not going to do anything crazy, but I wanna take it down the road. I wanna have a feel. I wanna test the brakes out more than in my driveway and just see where this thing's at. I'm so excited that we're at this point. It has been a long, long time coming. We've got the interior done. We've got the engine swapped, and now we need to start working on the exterior. But first, we need to enjoy a test drive. This is crazy. Only a little loud. Let's see. Oh, that's second. Doesn't. Hang on. There's a sweet spot. That's it. Reverse is a little hard to find. The speedometer works. Oh my goodness. This is crazy. Oh, rear view mirror works. Wow, it is sized so incredibly appropriately. There's not a square inch of anything but window I can see out of that thing. Oh my God, this thing is peppy. This is crazy. Oh, this is wild. The steering is, I don't know, it feels weird. I turn the wheel and the wheels are behind me right now, so it feels really weird that when I steer, I'm moving like more than expected, but we're steering less than expected. Oh, this thing is got no lack of power. Seeing this thing out on the streets for the first time really hit different. Felt so amazing, and I am so glad we're getting this thing back on the road. Hop in, let's go. Ever seen a Volkswagen van speeding? This is insane. Also, I cannot get over how wild it feels to be sitting in front of the tires or on top of. It's just weird. This is so crazy. I can't believe it's driving. We very well might need to reevaluate the radiator situation. We might have an ugly radiator hanging out the back. We'll figure it out. Is what it is. Should I see if they want to race for pinks? She does not want to race for pinks. But it does rip! This thing rips. So much less stupid without that there. Do we go off-roading up and over that dirt hill just to prove to everybody that my oil pan is not gonna just absolutely obliterate itself at the first thought of anything that isn't a perfectly paved road? Just a thought. That felt so weird. I was touching the hill before going up. Okay, okay. Let's see. Let's see. Two things. One, a fan would very much so be helpful. Seems like it might be getting warm. Two, I still have inches to my oil pan coming down a very steep embankment. Yes, I know this oil pan isn't ideal, but I promise, unless I do something really ill-advised, it's not gonna just explode. A rock is not gonna just come up and hit this oil pan and break it. Believe it or not, this oil pan is higher up than most every Subaru on the road. Don't have to believe me. It is what it is. I've got 10 inches of ground clearance right now, and it's just gonna go up as we get bigger tires and to get this thing more dialed in. I can't believe we actually got to flip and drive this thing. It goes down the road, it stops, it starts, it does everything a car does. It might not do it all great. This cooling system might need revisited, but it fired me up to be able to drive this thing down the road, and it actually scoots. It's got way more pep in its step than I thought it would, but we've got a long road ahead of us before this thing is ready to hit a long road. So stick around, because I've got a ton of parts on order. This is an entire quarter panel I'm gonna be replacing. I've never done body work, so we're gonna be learning a lot of things as we go. I'm so excited with this project. Thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing, and I will catch you on the next one.